Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for our webinar, Pinterest for Your Business. My name is Jill, and I'm the Training and Education Manager here at Vertical Response. And today I'm going to take you through how Pinterest can help your business and how you can use it to get more customers to come to your website. Or your store. Just a couple things before I jump into the webinar. First of all, this will probably be about 35 minutes or so. At the end, there will be time for Q&A. So if you think of some questions along the way, go ahead and type those into the box that you see in your GoToWebinar window, and I will be happy to answer whatever questions you have at the end. One of the questions I get asked pretty much every time I do a webinar is this being recorded? And the answer is yes, I am recording this. It will go up on our recorded webinars page on our help site, hopefully later today. So if you want to go through and review it again, you will be able to do that. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to do today. So first of all, I'm going to cover what Pinterest is. Hopefully at this point it's been around long enough that you guys know what Pinterest is and that you are on it at least a little bit. I'm going to talk about how Pinterest can help your business. I have some tips to help you pin, have good images, and tips on pinning in general. I have a slide of resources for you. Some of them are from Pinterest, some of them are from us. They're all free, so that's always helpful. And then, like I said, there will be time for Q&A. And along the way, I have lots of examples of pins and boards that should help inspire you to use Pinterest a little bit more. So first of all, what is Pinterest? Pinterest is basically a pin board. It's like having a cork board in your office, and you can pin things to it, but it's electronic. And it allows users to create and manage their images and their collections based on pretty much whatever you want. You can create as many boards as you like based on whatever information you want it to be based on. So it could be events that you're holding. It could be interests, hobbies, products, blog posts, whatever you want to share, whatever people want to share, whatever they're interested in, can be pinned on Pinterest. People using Pinterest can browse other boards for inspiration, and they're able to repin the images that they see onto their own boards, which as a small business, if you're pinning things about your business, having others see them is really the ultimate goal here. So you really want to get people to repin your pins that you have on your own boards. This is a screenshot of my own Pinterest page. There's a variety of things going on in there. Everybody has different interests, and I'm going to talk a lot about some of the things that you can do as a business to help get more people to look at your boards and repinning your pins. And a pin can be just about anything that you want it to be. Like I said, it could be about events, interests, products. It could be gifts, recipes, whatever. If you add the pin it button to your website, people are able to add things from your site onto their Pinterest board directly. Pinterest has lots and lots of tools to help you use Pinterest for your business. They have definitely in the last year and a half, made some changes on their platform to really help businesses use it. And I'm going to talk about those today as well. So how does it work for your business? As I said, people can see what you're pinning. If people are pinning products or services that you offer on their own boards, then they're going to be able to see that as well. There was a study done by Vision Critical. They did a survey, and these are some stats that I thought were pretty interesting. 21% of Pinterest users said that they bought an item after they pinned it, repinned it, or liked it. So not only are people using Pinterest for things for dreaming, but they're also using Pinterest as a way to take a look at products or services that they're interested in. And they do buy. People do buy things after they see it on Pinterest. People who are under the age of 35, their percentage goes up. So it was 36% of them who purchased an item after they had pinned it or liked it or whatever it is that they did. Of the people who purchased, these are some stats. This is from the same study. 10% reported they discovered it while searching on Pinterest. 24% found it on another board. 19% discovered it from a friend's board, and 7% was from a retailer's board. And one thing you want to keep in mind, this is from a different study, 70% of brand engagement on Pinterest is generated by users and not the company, which kind of ties into the 7% of the products or services purchased from Pinterest are only coming from a retailer's board. Most of it are being found on other people's boards. So there's a lot of room for businesses still on Pinterest to get in there and get people's attention on what it is that they're selling, what their products are. And I think there's no reason you shouldn't be on there with your business. The only thing you need really for Pinterest is a nice image of your product or something that says something about your service, and you can pin it. And as you can see, there are plenty of people who shop from Pinterest, so you can use Pinterest as a way to drive people to your website or to your store or to your business and get more interest in what's going on with your business. So let's get into some more of the details. So we kind of know what it is, and we kind of got an idea there that you can have people purchase directly from Pinterest or get inspired to purchase from Pinterest. So here's some tips when it comes to pinning for your business. First of all, you need to use good images. I have that a little further down, but I think the number one thing that you need to think about when you're pinning on Pinterest is the images. This is a really visual medium, as you can see from the screenshot I showed you earlier. So you need a really good image. The other thing that you're going to want to make sure you're doing is adding a lot of information on this description. So when you're pinning your own product or service onto Pinterest, make sure you're adding good information about it, including the price, because that will add a little banner that says how much it costs. But it also helps potential buyers get the information that they need about your product before they've even clicked to your website. It just really helps to get them interested and engaged in what you're doing on Pinterest and what your business is about in general. It also gives you an opportunity to add keywords as well. So if you have a little more information about what you're pinning, then it stands a better chance of people being more engaged in your picture. Pinterest suggests that you use vertical images. They tend to work a little bit better just because of the way they arrange the boards and the feed. The vertical images tend to work a little bit better. They also say that pictures without people or pictures without people's faces. So if you're showing a picture of a knitting technique or a cooking technique, if you have a picture of the hands doing it, it tends to have a bigger impact than if there's a picture of a person's face. Another thing to keep in mind is to think about your followers' interests. So when you're thinking about creating boards for your business, you're probably thinking about the products that you sell. Maybe you have different kinds. You can have a board for each type or the services that you offer. But you also want to create some boards that are fun, that aren't specifically about your business, but things that your customers or your potential customers would find interesting. So you want to think about what your followers are going to be wanting to see. And a lot of people are on Pinterest for a variety of reasons, but a lot of times they're looking for things to do with a hobby that they're interested in, a project that they're working on. It also could be things like, just dreaming about a vacation or planning wardrobe. It just depends on the people. So think about that as well when you're creating your boards and when you're pinning, so that you have a mixture of things on your boards that your followers are going to find interesting, because it could be that they really would like to see the lamps that you're selling, but if they're not thinking about lamps right now, they might see the recipe that you pinned for Irish soda bread, and that leads them to your board. So also think about what the sort of people who normally are your customers would also be interested in and create boards around that. In addition to using good images, use links. So as I said, you can use Pinterest to drive people to your store or to a website, but you have to have a link for them to be able to get to your website. So when you're creating your pins, be sure you're putting in a link and that it goes directly to your page where that product or service can be found. You also want to follow others who have similar interests or are in the same industry to help get you started and see some of the stuff that they're pinning. It's pretty easy to find that kind of information. Pinterest has a good search tool up in the top left corner, and you can easily find information. Or you can search by categories, you could search by companies. There's all different things you can search for, and it'll come back with a lot of information. And that can get you some ideas on things that you can repin as well. You can share the stuff that you find on other boards, and also an idea of what people are interested in. So getting started, you want to get started by pinning some pictures of your products or services, as I said, but you also want to have some different types of boards. Make it really easy for people by having visually appealing boards. Again, like I said, this is all about vision and all about the looks. So make sure you have some eye-catching pictures in there. There's a variety of boards on this particular example here. This is the Loopy U, and they have knitting. It's a knitting store. A yarn store, actually. But they have different boards. So this one here has color inspiration. So this is not anything that they're selling. It's really just about colors in nature and colors that work together to inspire people to put them together for their own projects. They have some funny things that people have created. They have different types of tips. This one is tips on knitting. So it isn't all about what they're selling, but it is about what people who would be shopping at their store would find really interesting. And then they also have some boards where they are selling their products. But you want to also make sure when you're setting up your boards that people can easily get to the information. So from this board, once you're on the board, you should be able to click on the pinned image and go right to where you need to go. So make sure you're not sending people through a lot of steps. Another thing I would suggest when you're creating your boards is if you're repinning something, before you pin it on your board, make sure that it goes directly to the right place. I find frequently that when I go check out a website for a recipe or for a project or whatever it is that I'm looking at, it doesn't go directly to that page where it should be going. It goes somewhere else. And there are certainly people on here who are doing kind of spammy tactics, so they'll pin a really pretty picture, but the link goes somewhere you really don't want to go. So you can report those, but I always double check that the links are really going where I need them to go before I pin anything. That way I can always go back and get the information that I need. Plus, if somebody repins from my boards, they're getting the correct information as well. So, like I said, repinning is totally fine. It's a good thing to do. I would just double check that the links are going where they should go. And the same with yours. You don't want to make people click through a variety of pages to get to the product because people just aren't going to want to do that. And this is a picture of one of the pins that they've put on their board. And one of the things I'd like to point out here is the watermark that they put on their image. If you're able to do that, that can be pretty helpful because sometimes pins get separated from their initial pinning information. But if you have a watermark, people can see where it came from. So these guys have one right here. You can see it just has their logo just in the little left corner. And that way, if the information somehow gets separated from the image, then you can still know where it goes. You can create themes as well, and creating themes can really help not only you keep everything in order, but also the people who are following you find the stuff that they're looking for. So it also kind of helps to tell a story, and it keeps some cohesion going on with your pins. And then if people are interested in something specific, especially if it's a specific product or service that you have, having a board or a theme to your board makes it easy for them to find exactly what they're looking for, and they don't have to look through every board to find what they really want. So this is the Loopy U, and as I said on the previous slide, they had a variety of boards, but this is a board that they created of the yarn that they're selling in their store, and this is Colors of Summer. So this is a theme, and they have some nice bright colors that you could use for different projects. And you can see you could go to their website if you wanted to, or to their store and purchase these things if you were interested in doing that. Now, creating posts on Pinterest or pins on Pinterest is not anything about recreating the wheel. Much like the stuff that you would pin, or sorry, the stuff you would post on Facebook or Twitter, you can use similar information on Pinterest. The only caveat is that you have to have an image in order to add it to Pinterest. But you can still use some of the same information from different spots that you have. So up here at the top is an example of one of our newsletters, and it has a pin it button, so people reading it are able to pin this if they want to on Pinterest. And there are images in the newsletter, so that's something that Pinterest can grab and pin it onto a board. And we share our, I have an example in a minute, we share our newsletters on Pinterest. We also have our blog posts on Pinterest, so it doesn't have to be a product that you're selling. It can be other information that you pin. And this is an example of one of our blog posts that's pinned. So it's something we've already done. We've already written it. It's on our blog. It's also included in the newsletter, but we also added on to our Pinterest board so people on Pinterest can find our blog posts as well. It makes it easier on you because you do not have to always have something specific for each of the social networks that you're on. This makes it easier for you to be able to create one piece of content and then be able to share it in different places. Like I said, the only thing you have to have for Pinterest is an image associated with whatever it is that you're sharing. This is Anthropologie, and on their website they have pin it buttons on all of their product pages, and this is something that you can do fairly easily. The Pinterest has a page with widgets that you can add to your website, so you can easily add the pin it button to your page. It does require going into the code, but they give you the code that you need. So even if you're not the person in charge of coding your website, you can give the information to the person who is, and then people can pin it. And the great thing about this is other people are creating boards of your products or services, or at least pins, and your products are getting out there without you having to do the work. So you already have your products up on your website, and then the people who like your products will be able to share that information on Pinterest, and that makes it super easy for you. Another thing that you can pin, and this is a place pin. We're going to talk about this in just a minute, but this is Jordan Vineyard, and they create a lot of videos, and they include these videos in the emails that they send out, and they also have them on their website. But they've also pinned them on their Pinterest page as another way for sharing it, and you can put videos up on Pinterest as well as images. So if you have videos, it's a great thing to share on your Pinterest page. And again, it's an easy way to share content you've already created and not having to start everything from scratch. And here are two examples of other social networks that are being used to point people to Pinterest. So on the top left is ModCloth. They were having some work done on their website, and in the meantime on Facebook they said, why don't you go check out our Pinterest page, because that was where they had pictures of their products, so people couldn't get to the website but they could still see the products on Pinterest. It's a great use of something that's going on Pinterest that they're sharing on Facebook. The one over here in the bottom right is the Nevada SPCA, and this is from Twitter. And they shared a picture on Twitter of this adorable puppy who needs to be adopted. And they pointed people to Pinterest where they could go see this puppy and other ones that could be adopted as well. So that's also a really good way to send people not only to your Pinterest page, but also to get them more engaged in what's going on with your business, because they can see the other boards and things that you've pinned there. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of pins. So as I said earlier, Pinterest over the last year and a half has made some changes that are very business friendly. And one of the things that they added are rich pins. So rich pins are a more informed pin than some of them that we've seen previously. So rich pins have additional information depending on the type of pin it is about that particular product or service or whatever it is that's being pinned. So the different types of rich pins are product pins, places, recipe, articles, and movies. So they created product, recipe, and movies early last year, but this year they expanded that, and they added another piece to Rich Pins. So they also added the articles and the places this year, and expanded the product pins a little bit. So for example, over here on the top left is a recipe pin, and just by clicking on the image on Pinterest, you get additional information. So this is the information about what you need for the recipe. So instead of having to go all the way to the website, you can just click on this and see what you need to make this recipe. Make sure you have what you need, go to the store on your way home from work, and then you can make it. So they give you a little more information without having to go all the way to the website. This is the product pins, and this gives information about what the product is, how much it costs, and it says that it's in stock. So it tells you where you can buy it, what the product is, and how much it's going to cost. That's what the product rich pins tells you. Here's another example here. This one is from Etsy. It's in stock. It's $27, and it tells you what it is. So the rich pins, again, especially for the products, would be really useful for a business because you're able to get more information about what's going on with your products without having people go to your website. But the great thing is that it says that it's in stock, which means people can go to your store or to your website and they know for sure they're going to be able to get it because the rich pin is telling them it's still in stock. Additionally, product pins, once they're pinned on somebody's board, if the price changes, Pinterest sends an email. So this is an example of an email that I received. I was helping my sister plan her niece's wedding, and I had pinned some things, and they sent me an email to tell me that this had dropped in price. Now, that is really good for a small business. That's one less email you would have to send to tell people if something was on sale. Anyone who pinned your product and it was a rich pin will get an alert from Pinterest saying that there was a change in the price. If it was on sale, they would let anyone who pinned it know. So that's one less email you would have to send. So the other thing that Pinterest did with product pins, besides incorporating emails, is they now have a more sophisticated gifts feed. They used to have a feed for gifts that involved if you had put a price in your description, it would get pulled into the gift feed. Now they're using the product pins as the gift feed. So if you look up here in the top left, when you're looking through the menu, it comes up under gifts. It's just something that they've added in there. And when you go to the gifts page, you have different options here. So you can choose to look at all price points on the gifts. Otherwise, they're broken down by $25 and under, $25 to $50, $50 to $200, or $200 and up. And that's what these different dollar signs mean here at the top. So you can kind of rearrange these things. But these are the rich pins, the product pins, and they're getting pulled into this gifts category, which makes it really easy for people to find things that they can buy. Right now, Pinterest is curating this particular feed because it's new. They just came out with this a couple months ago. But it should be something that they can stop curating as soon as there's more rich pins for product pins out there. Place pins is one of the new pins that they came out with a couple months ago. And place pins are a little different because you can pin a place, obviously, and included with the place pins are a map, the address if that's been included, and a phone number also if that's been included. So over here on the left is the Kentucky Derby, and it shows you the phone number here, and it shows you a map of this particular place. And this is a picture from Norway, and again you can see the map. You can see what it's called. Since this is a mountain, it doesn't have a phone number, and it doesn't really have an address, but it does still get pulled into a place pin. So again, if you're pinning things that have anything to do with your business and you're using a place pin, it makes it easy for people to find your products or find your business. If you have a business where you have products from different parts of the country or the world, you can create place pins for those different types of products. If you're a nonprofit and you're helping people in different parts of the country or the world, you can have pins from those different places to show all the different people that you're helping. You can also create a board with place pins, and then you get something that looks like this. I am from Colorado originally, so I picked this one, but they have all of these place pins over here, and then on the map you can see the different places that have been pinned on this board. And you can actually click on these little icons that you see on the map, and that will bring up that particular pin over here on the left hand side so you can get a closer look at what the picture is. So again, this is kind of a travel thing, but again, as I said, if you have a product or service that you're offering, you can use this as a way to show people where things are coming from or the people that you're helping. All kinds of things. You can also just have a fun board about traveling if you wanted to. So another one that they came out with this year, again, is article pins. And this is also something I think that can be pretty helpful for a business, because this allows you to share articles with people following you. So it doesn't just have to be a product that you're selling or service that you're selling. If there's articles that you find that are really interesting or helpful for your customers, from just other people in your industry, you can pin that information and create boards with useful knowledge that people might be really interested in. If you have a blog, you can also do this. So article pins are also a rich pin, and the information they give you is a headline. They tell you who wrote it, and then you get a little snippet of the article itself, and here it is over here. So this was written by Apartment Therapy because that's their website. This has the person's name, so the author's name, the title of the article, and then a little snippet. And then people are able to go and read these articles, or they can save articles on a board that they can go then later read. So again, super helpful for a business, because you can share a lot of the information that you have with people on Pinterest. Now, the thing about rich pins is that you do need to do a little bit of work on your website. And they do have a page. I have the URL coming up, but it's business.pinterest.com/developers. And they have information on how to set this up. So basically there needs to be a little bit of code added onto the page for the products, or a little bit of code added onto the page for the article in order for this information to get pulled in. Again, if there's somebody who does your website, you can give them that code and they can add that in there. The developer page has tons of info on how to do this, and it's not really hard. It's something that's set up in the meta tag at the top of your page, but you just have to be able to get in there. So if you're not the one who does that, then it is something that your webmaster will need to do. So I have some more tips. These are going to be a little bit more advanced than some of the stuff that we already saw, but they can be super helpful for businesses. So this looks scary on this slide, but this just came out at the end of April, so this is brand new. They just added UTM tracking to Pinterest. So basically, if you add information to the URLs that you are using on your website to track people, usually with Google Analytics is what you would be using, but whatever else you might be using that uses UTM tracking, they are now going to recognize the tracking. So they're supporting it now. If you've already pinned something and it has a UTM code, you don't need to do anything, because now it'll work. It wasn't working before, but now it will work for the tracking on Google Analytics. If you're not, or if you hadn't been using it and you wanted to, it is now something that's working. So if you're using Google Analytics or something else that creates UTM tracking, then it's going to be supported. If you want to find out more about UTM tracking, Google has a page, and that's the URL. It's kind of long, but that is specifically about UTM tracking, and they tell you, they'll create a URL for you if you want to use that for tracking. So they kind of break down the URL and show you how you can add that in there. So basically you're going to have things like a campaign name, you're going to have where it's coming from, and you can see this in here. So this is from our newsletter. So NL is newsletter, so the campaign is newsletter, the medium is email because we sent it in an email, the source is vertical response, then there's some content information. So this is basically the kind of tracking that you're going to be adding if you're using Google Analytics. If you're not, don't worry about this. You don't have to use it, but if it is something that you're using, you'll be able to track people clicking from Pinterest now, which is pretty exciting. And then, as Facebook and Twitter have all done, Pinterest is looking to do promoted pins, basically pins that are advertisements that have been paid for by a business. It's something they're still working on. I have not seen these pop into my feed yet. I do go on Pinterest quite a bit. So it is still a work in progress. If it's something that you're interested in, they have a form you can fill out, and they will send you information as they kind of start rolling this out. But as I said, it's something they're still working on. It's business.pinterest.com/promoting-pins. If you go to business.pinterest.com, you'll see it. There's categories on the left side of that page, and you'll see promoted pins in there. So if you're interested in adding an advertisement into Pinterest, it's something they're working on. This should not be confused with related pins, and a lot of people have actually confused these two. They are somewhat similar, but they are not the same. Pinterest also has what they call related pins, and they're basically suggestions that they give you based on other things that you have already pinned on your boards. It's a little bit tricky because sometimes you create a board that has like an end to it. So for example, when I was helping my sister plan her niece's wedding, I don't really care about weddings, so I don't need to see more pins about weddings because she's already married. It's all done. So you don't want to see more of those kind of things. But you can rate the pins, and then if you say thumbs down, they'll stop telling you stuff about that. But when you click on the information dot, it'll say this is a pin from board that has the same kind of pins as my board, and that's why they're suggesting it. Promoted pins will have a similar thing about the pin, but instead of saying it's similar to something you've done, it'll say Bob's Lamp Store paid for this to be in your feed. And that's the plan for that. So related pins are out there right now. It's just something Pinterest is doing it based on an algorithm that they have. You can't really get your stuff into the related pins, but they're working on doing that with the promoted pins. And one more thing that Pinterest added last year is business accounts. And as a business, you definitely want to have a business account. If you've already created your Pinterest account and it wasn't set up as a business account, you can go in, they have a page, if you go to business.pinterest.com, where you can change your account to a business one. You absolutely want to do that. If you haven't created an account, make sure you set it up as a business account because you get analytics. And this is something that is going to be really helpful as you start pinning on your boards, because you'll be able to see more information about what's happening, how people are interacting with your boards. You can see the things you're pinning that are really popular. You can see the things that maybe aren't as popular. You can see how often things are being repinned. So it's really important to take a look at this to see what people are really liking on your board so that you can continue to give this information to people. And have more people following your boards and repinning your pins, because that way you can get more of your products or services out there in front of people who are going to be interested in it. So make sure you're looking at your analytics. Look for spikes, because the spikes mean something was really popular. And then take a look and see what that pin was and what you can do to pin something that's really similar to it. And the important thing to look for is the pins that are getting shared and the pins that are getting liked. So if people are repinning things, or if people are pinning stuff from your website, you can also see that as well. Again, to give you some insight into what people are doing and how they're interacting with the pins on your page. So again, set up a business account, which on this page is this top thing. There really isn't a difference. It makes it easier for you to create your pins with price tags on them when you're setting it up, but also you get the analytics, and the analytics are really big. Remember that images are really important on Pinterest because that's what people are really looking at and using as a reason to repin, but make sure you're repinning ones that are also good. And like I said, check to make sure any of them that you're repinning have appropriate URLs going to appropriate pages, because there are some people out there who are disguising, really bad websites with a good picture. Mix up your boards. It shouldn't all be about you. You should have some fun boards as well as some business related boards. Just mix it up, just like you would do if you were doing posts on Facebook or Twitter. You don't want any of your social network posts to have be all business. You need to have some other stuff in there to keep people interested. You need to pin frequently. And that can mean a lot of different things. You do not have to pin every single day, but it would be a good thing to have your pins coming up in the feed. So you need to pin fairly regularly. I would say a couple times a week would be good. Also, you want to keep your boards fresh, especially if you have your products on there. You know, if you have some seasonal stuff on your products, or if you're offering a service that has some seasonality to it, make sure you're keeping all that information updated so you don't have stuff that you're no longer carrying in stock on your boards, because that will make people sad if they want to come and buy it. And again, think about how people are using Pinterest and what their interests are, and try to cater some of your pins to that to help bring them to your boards and to see what it is that your business is doing. And of course, have fun. Pinterest is a really fun social network, and you can end up spending lots and lots of time on it if you really want to. And just try to have a good time coming up with ideas for your Pinterest boards. So as I said, there are some resources for you. This is the Rich Pins. So if you're interested in that, like I said, you do need to have a little bit of work done on your website for the Rich Pins to work. But as you can see, they can really pay off, especially if you're doing the product ones and you're selling different products, because that email that they send is really helpful. Again, it helps keep your business in people's mind without you having to do all of the work of sending out the emails. Also, Pinterest has a really good support page for businesses. They have some case studies. If you're a nonprofit, unfortunately, they don't, at least as of yet, have a case study of nonprofits on there, but there are tons of nonprofits on Pinterest, and they do a really nice job. But they do have case studies on there. They have tips. They tell you how to add the pin it button on your website. They have all kinds of information there because they really do want businesses to be on there. We have some resources for you at our page. Oh, I forgot to put the URL in there. If you go to our website, verticalresponse.com, and then click on More and then Resources, you'll see guides. A small business guide to Pinterest will take you through some of the stuff that we talked about here today on how to get set up on Pinterest and what to look for when you're pinning. And we also have an email and social media marketing checklist when you're getting ready to send out a post or an email, the things to make sure you've included, and so you can think about your Pinterest posts and make sure you include all the right info using our guide here.